This video is sponsored by PCBWAY.
Lift up to an extreme angle now before it'll tilt forward.
That's showing one of the robot's name is Sonic as it's zipping around the page.
Hey there, this is Seth Schaefer from Team Just Cause Robotics, and this is my newest bot, this 1 pound ant weight bot called Sonic, which just competed at the October MakerBattle event in Hartford, Connecticut. This bot is a 1 pound ant weight robot, so had to be under 1 pound, a third the size of the beetle weights that I normally build. I've only built one other ant weight before, Mini Mulcher, and originally I was going to upgrade that bot for this event, but I completely ran out of time, so 2 weeks before the event, I decided I'd throw together a completely new robot using only parts that I already had on hand, spending basically no money on it whatsoever, just using a bunch of the beetle weight parts I already had, including a prototype dual speed controller that hopefully I'll be selling at some point soon, and 2 Viper drive motors that you can normally find in beetle weights. So this robot had more drive power than a lot of 3 pound robots, even though it's just in a 1 pound robot package. And I stole the weapon assembly off of my 3 pound bot shrapnel mine that kind of has like a saw thing, and just replaced the saw with this custom Waterjet AR500 disc so that it would have more of a real weapon. Otherwise, it's extremely bad because all of the weight's in the back, so it likes to go all topsy-turvy all the time, and it's pretty crazy, but it's super fast, has a crazy amount of drive power for a 1 pound bot, and it was a lot of fun, and it only cost me about $20. So, with that all out of the way, let's see how this bot did at the competition. We've got a bunch of fights to get through, but the Hartford event was a double elimination tournament format, which meant win twice and you're out, but you keep fighting otherwise, and every fight was 2 minutes long rather than the usual 3 minutes. My first fight was against a bot named BBY Synthesis, or BBY Synthesis. This is a 1 pound scaled down version of the 3 pound bot, which is a scaled down version of the 30 pound bot called Synthesis, all built by Corey Nason. Corey recently got famous on the NHRL circuit for taking out 2 champion bot builders at once with the 3 pound version of Synthesis. So I knew this bot was no pushover, and I knew it was going to be a pretty brutal first matchup. So let's see how this fight went.
3, 2, 1. Fight, robots, fight. Alright, both weapons up to speed. Corey had a lot of weight hanging out, ready to go.
So hopefully you'll be seeing my driving slowly improve throughout this competition, because I obviously have like no space to drive this in my 2x2 foot test box at home, and every time I would accelerate too fast, the robot would just flip over backwards since it's so back heavy like you see here, which made it quite difficult to position myself the way I would like.
Nice exchanges there. Corey plants himself, drives in.
Alright, you can't see it here, but my blade was so sharp it got stuck in the wall briefly and managed to get myself free. Seems like BBY Synthesis is having some drive troubles.
Alright, nice hot there from Sonic. Cutting into that.
Now maybe more than just drive troubles. The way BBY Synthesis is built, it's split into 2 halves. Each half has its own receiver and battery, so even though I ripped a drive motor and a battery out of BBY Synthesis, it still has one side of drive and the weapon's still spinning. Unfortunately, BBY Synthesis also hit one of my drive shafts, so both of us are crab walking now.
30 seconds to go. Both weapons are still spinning very fast, but both
So that fight went pretty well, I would think, for me, other than breaking a drive motor on my bot. It seemed like I did way more damage and, what's that? The judges said I lost? Okay. Somehow ripping literally half the batteries and motors out of my opponent while the only damage that I had was one drive side locking up is, not enough to win, so... Yay! Alright, now I'm in the loser's bracket, and it's gonna be a long day fighting my way through it. My next fight was up against a ring spinner called Spinaroonie. This is not a type of bot that I've ever fought before in my entire combat robot career, I don't think, actually. I've fought, Melty Brains twice. I don't even know if I've fought a traditional shell spinner, actually. I certainly haven't fought a ring spinner before, so this was going to be interesting. The advantage that ring spinners have versus a traditional shell spinner is basically just that they can also drive upside down. So it's harder to build a ring spinner than a shell spinner that keeps working, but if you can do it properly, it's really, really hard to knock these bots out. So I knew I was just going to try and have to hit them as hard as I could from the get-go and hope to disable their weapon throughout the fight.
3, 2, 1, fight, robots, fight, signs, pop tip right upside down.
The good news is that first hit was awesome. The bad news is that first hit broke my weapon motor shaft. So my weapon basically couldn't really turn at any reasonable speed for the rest of the fight. It was all going to come down to me driving and trying to break his fist with my face. Now, one thing that worried me was that I did not bring a Dremel with a cutoff wheel to this event, and I couldn't find somebody to borrow it from, so one of my drive motors that had just been replaced now has a steel shaft sticking out that's an extremely easy target for a horizontal spinner of any kind, especially one like this. So I was pretty nervous that at some point I would end up losing a gearbox again, so trying to be really careful not to expose those wheels. Finally, with like 15 seconds left, I managed to break his weapon.
13 seconds left in this match. Seth's trying to get a last hit here. 4, 3, 2, 1, and that is the match.
Thankfully, me breaking their weapon evened out the damage score, so with better control and aggression on my side, I easily won that judge's decision. My next fight was up against Ceasar. Now, Ceasar was an awesome architecturally themed overhead hammer saw robot. This robot scared the crap out of me because the top armor on Sonic is like non-existent. It's just TPU that's like a couple millimeters thick. So I wasn't going to do anything to stop that hammer saw coming straight through it. If they got a good hit on me, I could be completely toast. So I was going to have to make sure that didn't happen. Let's see how this fight went.
2, 1, fight, robots, fight. Alright, 2 vertical spinners overhead.
Both bots have a similarly intimidating death hum. As Sonic flops like a fish, unable to capitalize on this, it looks like I did somehow mostly disable Ceasar's spinner, but it comes back to life.
Ceasar re-squared up, got that weapon spin again. Right, Sonic just getting right under Ceasar there. A few bites out of those front forks.
putting Sonic in the danger zone here, but it looks like their spinner is actually not spinning at all anymore. So now I can just go in for a kill. Fatality. Winner, Sonic. After fighting Ceasar, I now had a slightly easier opponent in Esper. Esper, similar to Ceasar, has its weapon on an articulating arm, but this time it's just a Fingertech drum spinner on a flimsy TPU printed arm with a 4-wheel drive system underneath that is very, very slow. This bot is built by Kakoto Mane, so he's a great builder, but he said that this bot was very rushed and he had very little time to work on it, and it didn't quite come out the way that he had hoped. Though he did manage to struggle his way through a few matches earlier in the day, this was going to be a relatively easy one for me. So let's see how it went. Wasn't really apparent from the video, but yeah, Esper wasn't looking too happy after that fight. With Esper out of the way, it was now time to fight Sacrificer. Now, Sacrificer is a heavily modified Viper kit with the vertical spinner attachment. Unlike Esper with its drum attachment, this one has a hardened steel custom single-tooth blade that hits quite a lot harder. It's got an upgraded titanium front panel and a few other upgrades to it. However, this bot had also been taking some damage in previous fights, and it was definitely adding up, and its builder told me they were running a little bit low on spares. The driver of this bot, though, is the same as the driver of the bot Apex at NHRL, extremely well-driven bot, so it wasn't going to be super easy to take him out. This was going to be a tough one.
3, 2, 1, fight! Robots, fight!
So right out of the gate, it looks like Sacrificer's having some drive issues on that left side. Sonic is obviously a very weapon-forward robot. I designed it so that the spinner is just barely more than like 1 millimeter above the floor at the very front edge, but unfortunately it has no real ground game, so I do find myself glancing off of the front wedge of Sacrificer quite a bit. I'm just hoping to get one good hit and then bend it up so that I can get a bunch more. Finally, I get that hit I was looking for. You can see that there's now a big air gap under that wedge. For whatever reason, though, somehow this seems to make it even harder for me to bite in. I don't really understand how that happened. once again I can do some actual damage here.
You're still able to move us now. At least 5 seconds left in this match.
Sonic is taking a beating, but it's shrugging off most of the damage because the TPU is just that durable.
Sonic making those big moves. 15 seconds to go.
I try to take out that last remaining wheel in the last few seconds of the fight, but no dice, and it goes to the judges, which I obviously win handily. So yeah, that fight went really well for me. The chassis did take quite a beating at this point, and I had to patch up some tears in it by using a soldering iron to try and melt and kind of stitch it back together. But I think that's pretty typical for TPU in general, where it's getting hit directly, and otherwise the chassis was holding up great, and everything was working pretty well. The only issue I had was with the little plastic forks, or the TPU forks that are kind of bolted onto the front. Sometimes those were getting torn off and I'd have to replace them, but I printed a bunch of spares of those, so not a huge deal, really. Before I move on to the final fight of the event for me, I want to add a quick ad for my channel sponsor, PCBWAY. PCBWAY has a bunch of promotions going on right now, and they will through the entire month of December for Christmas sales, so make sure to check them out at the link down below. And here is a little segment that I recorded earlier.
And today's video is sponsored by PCBWAY, who helped me make these prototypes for my long AIO V2.1 boards. These are going to not replace the current all-in-one board, at least not right away, but they, I think, are a nice evolution over the previous all-in-one board design, which looks like this. Obviously, this giant block here is quite annoying. It makes it so that you kind of can only mount it in your robot one way. But I am changing this block for all these little components here, so they serve the same purpose of being a voltage regulator. And that way you can mount this, you know, either direction in your robot, because it's nice and flat now. So if you want the switch facing the bottom of your robot and the connectors out the top, you can have that. Or if you want it facing a back wall and have the connectors coming out towards the front, you can do that too. And it's less of a big deal than with this, where if you put it against a back wall, you've got all this space consumed, or you put it on the floor and you've got all this height consumed. You can't put something down on top of it or anything like that. So I think this will make it a little easier for people to fit this board into their robots. The BEC is no longer as powerful. This one is 0.5 amps. This is more like 0.1 amps or 100 milliamps, but that's plenty for any kind of RC receiver. It just won't be able to handle any servos and stuff. And it does still have some of the same protections as this one. I don't think it has short circuit protection anymore, but it at least has overcurrent, overtemp protection built in, so it shouldn't catch fire or anything. This is the same regulator that I've been using inside the motherboard to power its receiver in SSP kits, and there's over 100 kits that have been shipped, and no problems reported so far with that system, so I'm pretty safe in saying that it should be a pretty durable solution for the long term. So yeah, these aren't available just yet, but they will be soon, thanks to PCBWAY for making it possible for me to develop boards like this a little bit faster and cheaper.
Next up, a rematch with BBY Synthesis once again. I knew how this first one had gone, but I also was a lot better at driving now. However, BBY Synthesis was still on a tear this event, and one bad hit to my bot could definitely end things for me. I was especially nervous given that I was down to just my last spare weapon assembly, that this was not going to go very well for me if I took a bad hit. So I was going to have to drive really carefully to take the win on this one. Let's see how it went.
Starting in 5, 4, 3,
2, 1. Fight, robots, fight. Veteran builders here. Both have been building driving robots for a very long time. Both very well-known mentors and teachers in this community. Seth with everything that he does on YouTube and all the
At the start, it's looking like I have an advantage on these head-on engagements because my weapon is a smaller diameter and lower to the ground, and he has a feeder wedge that I'm able to nick a little bit. So when we're going weapon on weapon, even though he outreaches me a bit, I'm still making good contact most of the time.
But he always does, and I am very appreciative of that. Both very responsive.
Sadly, this is where Synthesis's reach advantage really came to fruition. He was able to hit the body of my motor, and once again, the motor shaft snapped in half, and my weapon was out of commission.
Spread out. Weapon on Sonic does not seem to be spinning. 45 seconds to go. Baby Synthesis's weapon is definitely still spinning. That is probably the quietest weapon Corey owns. Because I tell you, when his 30-pound robot gets in the box, you know his 30-pound robot is in the box. 30 seconds left in this match. Corey very proudly making those last hits on Sonic.
Remember how I said I had to replace those front TPU forks sometimes? Well, here one of the screws ripped out and the fork kind of folded underneath on the other screw so that it was hindering my drive.
Definitely damage on both. And that is
With both of us seemingly crippled to the finish, but only Sonic's weapon disabled, unfortunately the judges decided that the fight went to Baby Synthesis. I pulled the weapon motor out so I could see the damage, and yeah, the weapon shaft is bent, and the motor shaft is bent again, for sure. It looks like this came out and like unscrewed itself somehow, and but yeah, like that motor is probably broken the same way that the other one did, and then it just like bound up and unscrewed itself. Otherwise, I think everything's fully functional. But yeah, it took lots of hits all over the place. That was a good fight. It was close, but ultimately, just the fact that my drive and weapon were hampered and his drive was still, for the most part, working, did me in. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up my MakerBattle event report. If you'd like to see the full design files for Sonic uploaded to my website for sale, or if you're interested in taking a look yourself, let me know in the comments down below for sure. If there's any improvements or upgrades you think that I should make to the next version of Sonic, let me know as well, because this robot was really fun and cheap and easy to make, so I feel like it would probably be good for other people to try and build their own copies. The only problem is, like I said, the Weka speed controller that I'm using in here is just a prototype, not available for sale yet, but it should be in a couple months. And so you can't replicate it exactly as is right now, but you can probably replace the receiver and the Weka speed controller that I was using with a Malenki HV if you step down to the Gecko drive motors instead of the Vipers, because the Geckos have a stall current that's low enough for the Malenki HV to handle it, whereas the Weka speed controller is a 20 amp per channel dual speed controller, so that'll handle even up to Dragon motors no problem. Couple last reminders. Make sure to check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me in everything that I do. You can find that link down in the description. It's the best way to support me and my channel if you aren't going to be buying robot parts from me. That's a little bit of a better way, though it's a one-time thing instead of a continuous thing, but Patreon really helps me to produce higher quality videos and make sure to get this content out to you more consistently. I've been trying to hit at least 2 videos a month. I know it's been hard for me to get above that lately, but I'm hoping I'll have more time in the near future. I've got another event report that's going to be coming up in the next month or so, because I'm going to be bringing Subtraction to the Mass Destruction event on December 2nd, so definitely make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notified when that video comes out. Alright, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching.